Islamic history of theory of evolution. Many Islamic scholars suggest the theory of evolutionary creation long time before Darwin. Let me introduce to you, there are three components I told you. One of them, existing animals and plants developed by a process of gradual evolution. And let me introduce to you Ibn Khaldun. Ibn Khaldun died in 1406, 450 years before Darwin. Charles Darwin wrote the book. A respected Islamic scholar, Prime Minister of Morocco, a professor of Islamic jurisprudence, a judge in Egypt and Morocco, author of Muqaddimah. His Muqaddimah, described by Arnold Toynbee, the greatest work of its kind that ever been created by any mind, in any time. He writes in his Muqaddimah, Volume 1, creation began in an ingenious, gradual manner. It started from the minerals, progressed into plants and animals, and then the animal species become large and reach the world of monkeys. Then he continues. In a gradual process of creation, it finally leads to man who is able to think and reflect. The higher stage of man is reached from the world of monkeys, in which both sagacity and perception are found, but which has not reached the stage of actual reflection and thinking. In those days, they thought man was evolved from monkeys. Now we know it's not. We know we have a common ancestor, Dryopithecus, from their human family one way, a family the other way. Ibn Khaldun also, at the end of the description, he said, at this point, after creation, man came into picture. At this point, we come to the first stage of man. That means he knew that other hominid species existing. Otherwise, you would not say man. First stage of man. And this is as far as the physical observation reach. These people did what God told them to do. Travel through the earth and find out how God created everything. That's why it's a physical observation. They physically observed the nature and came out and answered the questions. Man is part of the animal kingdom. They accepted very clearly. Man belonged to genus of animal in Muqaddimah he has written. He is not the only evolutionist Muslim. Al-Jahiz, Abu Hassan al-Masudi, Muhammad, list goes down. I'm done time. So, in other words, first important part of theory of evolution was described by Ibn Khaldun by gradual changes I already established. Second thing is mutation, the mechanism. Mechanism is described, I'm not going to skip that. Ibn Khaldun writes in his book, the word physical characteristics of organism are determined by essence. Active nature has the ability to generate substance, change essences. If I'm going to introduce here the modern terminology into that sentence, essence means genotype, physical appearance means phenotype, generate substance, mutation. We will read this is the way we will read his sentences. Active nature has the ability to generate substances and essences. Active nature has the ability to generate mutation and change genotype. Mechanics of speciation, the essence at the end of each stage of particular stage of world by nature prepared to be transformed into essence of the adjacent to them, either above or below. That's his sentence. If I'm going to deduce our term, the genotype at the end of each particular stage of words are by nature prepared to be transformed into genotype adjacent to them, either above or below. So we have established the second important part of the theory of evolution. Third one is the natural selection. Animals with the advantageous traits reproduce and multiply. Natural selection, Darwin wrote, this is what he has written in The Origin of Species. When a race of plant is well established, Seed races do not pick out the best plant, but go over them, pull out the bad one out, and the good one survive. Then he says natural selection is immeasurably superior to man's feeble efforts. Now look at, I'm going to introduce to you a great Muslim scholar, lived about 1,000 years before Darwin. His name is Al-Biruni. He writes, agriculturists select his corn, letting to grow as much as he required, tearing out the remainder. Pull out. Then he says, he gives another example in the same next sentence. The forester leaves those branches while he perceived to be excellent, while he cut away all others, just like Darwin. The bees kill those of their kind who only eats but do not work in the beehives. Then he writes, nature proceeds similar way. Nature select. In other words, we have established all three components of theory of evolution long time before Darwin. Now, you may come, why we have not heard about this theory, Muslim theory of evolution? Because lack of freedom, press, illiteracy, violence against non-traditional views, traditions as we talk about. What about the rest? They never heard about at the time of Darwin? Did they know about Muslim theory of evolution? I'm going to introduce to you a famous American scientist, John William Draper. He was the contemporary of Darwin, well-known American scientist, first president of the American Chemical Society, president of the University of City of New York, now NYU. Let me give you a little bit of history about him. He is the Origin of Species was published in June of 1858, I think, 56. 6 months after, in November, the first 6 months after that publication, the British Society of Advancement of Science had a meeting in Oxford. In that meeting is the first time Origin of Species was ever discussed in a scientific meeting on that day. And in that meeting, John William Draper presented a paper. During the discussion of that paper, they sidestepped it, discussed about theory, origin of species. During that meeting, Bishop Wilberforce of, I forgot his name. The bishop, he was the Oxford University Chancellor. Okay. He asked Thomas Huxley, do you claim your ancestor to the monkey from your grandfather's or grandmother's side? That's the situation. So in other words, John William Draper was right there. He was the triggering point of discussion of origin of species for the first time. And if you look at his book, you will read, and I have references there. He writes in his book, Conflict Between Theory of Evolution, between science and conflict between science and religion. Christian theological authorities were constrained to look with disfavor on Muhammadan theory of evolution, which declared that human beings developed over a long period of time from a lower form of life to the present condition. Nowadays in America, we are fighting the fundamental Christians. They don't want to teach evolution. They want to teach creationism in the classroom. And this is what he has written in those days in Muslim schools. We meet with the idea with which we flatter ourselves having originated in our own time. John William Draper, contemporary writes, thus, our modern doctrine of evolution and development are taught in Muslim schools. In fact, they carried them much farther than we are disposed to do. They extend them to the inorganic minerals. Now, let's look at this map. Here, John William Draper is living thousands of miles away from Muslim civilization. In America, Darwin and all of his family live next door to it. Tell me, how come John William Draper in America heard about it and these people never heard? Does it make any sense? Hello? Now, let me connect you with Darwin. Abu Bakr ibn Tufail has written as a famous book, The Journey of the Soul. The story of the Haydn Ikhwan. It is an allegorical tale of evolution of life and society. And this was first published in Latin. The first Latin translation occurred in 1671. Since then, several editions came out in England. First English translation occurred in 1706. Dutch, German, and French translations in the 18th and 19th century. Look, there are not too many books were repeatedly published again and again and again in various languages, and it's so popular. Darwin's grandfather was a philosopher, Erasmus Darwin. They used to meet on they called it lunatic club, I think it's called. They used to meet on lunar eclipse days, all night. All these famous, all the intellectuals in those days. They discussed all topics in those days. Tell me this book was never been read by anybody, any one of them? Now, if you go and look in the internet, Erasmus Darwin's Temple of Nature. It is a poetry. It's a poetic rendition of the Abu Bakr ibn Tufail's book. It's called Temple of Nature. So, they knew about it. Darwin done a great service bringing more evidence for evolution. He did not bring anything new as the theory itself. Now, the story of creation from the Adam's rib. Ibn Khaldun writes in the book, in Muqaddimah, converted Jews and Christians clung to some of their Judeo-Christian beliefs, such as beginning of creation. Converts such as Ka'ab al-Abbar, Wahab ibn Manabiya, Abdullah ibn Salam, and others filled the Quranic commentary with such material which originated from the people of the book. In other words, all these came from the rib story came from there. Why we have not heard to see about? Sometimes simple people ask me, why we do not see monkey become human anymore. I have to show you my own president here. He says, Dick Cheney is right. If we clear cut all the forests, we can stop the forest for altogether. So the resist to become human. Thank you.